All right. Ready to dive into some of the big ideas in the Millionaire Next Door today, especially since you're so interested in mention listeners' reason for requesting the deep dive. It should be interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. Most people think of millionaires a certain way, right?
Yeah, totally. Big houses, fancy cars, that whole image.
Right. But this book throws all that out the window. It's not about those flashy things. It's about something way more interesting. It's about how they actually build wealth, and those habits, they're surprising.
And one of the biggest things the book hammers home is the whole net worth idea, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about the long game.
Yeah.
Not just what you make, but what you keep and what it's worth.
Cattle, not chattel. Right.
Exactly. It means you want assets, things that grow in value,
Hmm.
not just stuff that loses value the second you buy it.
So forget the get-rich-quick schemes. It's about those choices you make every day, brick by brick.
Exactly. Like, remember that expected net worth calculation?
Yeah.
Age times income divided by 10.
I remember doing that when I first read this. Kind of a reality check.
Right. And it shows how much your habits, not just your paycheck, affect your wealth.
It's eye-opening for sure. And the book has those great examples like Johnny Lucas, a millionaire janitor.
Yeah. Lived simply, invested consistently, proves you don't need a fancy title to build wealth.
Just those smart habits. Then there's the flip side. High earners who are barely scraping by, like the doctor, what was his name? Ashton, right?
Yeah, Dr. Ashton. Big income, but a surprisingly low net worth. Fell into that trap. Lifestyle inflation, bigger house, nicer car.
Thinking a big income means you don't have to worry about money.
And that's where it gets interesting, because the book then lays out these 7 factors, almost like secrets.
7 common things they found among these millionaires.
Yeah, and spoiler, it's not about getting rich quick. It's about discipline, planning, and, yeah, frugality too.
Living below your means. They talk about that a
A
lot.
lot. These millionaires, they'd rather drive a used car, invest the difference, and watch their wealth grow.
It's like they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Exactly. Thinking long term, not just about the next paycheck. And you know what else is huge? Having a frugal spouse.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right? Especially when it comes to money.
For sure. So you've got living below your means, a frugal partner. What else makes them tick?
Well, the book talks about choosing the right occupation. And I don't just mean doctors and lawyers.
Right. It's about finding a field where you can thrive, where you're passionate, but also one where that long-term mindset is common.
And get this, they found 80% of millionaires are first-generation rich. Think about that.
That's huge. It's not about inheritance. It's about creating your own wealth.
Like the American dream is alive and well.
It is. But it takes more than luck. It takes that drive, that discipline, those habits. It's what sets them apart.
One of the things I always think about from this book is those PAWs and UAWs, prodigious accumulators of wealth versus, get this, under accumulators of wealth.
Right. It's catchy, but it really makes you think.
It does. It's not just about how much you earn, it's your mindset.
Totally. Like a PAW, they could be making a decent living, but they're just so good with their money.
While a UAW, they might have those high-paying jobs, but they're not hanging on to it.
Because they haven't figured out those habits. Those core financial habits.
It's like Dr. North and Dr. South, right?
Exactly. Both doctors, both making good money.
With totally different outcomes.
Because Dr. North, our PAW, he's tracking everything. Budgeting, investing.
Intentional with every dollar.
Right. Well, Dr. South, he's got that lifestyle inflation going on.
Thinking a big house equals success.
And that reminds you of that other example,
Yeah.
The guy who spends more on his car than an actual millionaire.
Oh, yeah. Talk about a status symbol.
It's crazy. And it highlights this other point, that 15% rule for investing.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. 15%. Simple but powerful.
Right. Put aside 15% of your income, invest it, and watch it grow over time.
Compound interest, it's a beautiful thing. But you know where this book gets really interesting? For you especially, with mentioned listeners' reason for requesting the deep dive. This whole concept of economic outpatient care. They call it EOC.
EOC, yeah. It's basically helping out your adult kids, but it makes you think about it differently.
Like, it's not always a bad thing to help, but you've got to be smart about it.
Exactly. You don't want to create dependency. You want them to be independent.
Give them the tools, not just the handouts.
Right. The book talks about this couple, Lamar and Mary.
Oh, yeah, living way beyond their means, thanks to mom and dad.
And they're not bad people, but they've fallen into this montage effect thing.
The montage effect? What is that again?
It's like they see their parents' money as their own income stream.
Yeah.
They haven't earned it, so they don't value it the same way.
They haven't had those tough lessons, those financial growing pains.
Exactly. And that can cause issues, especially when it comes to inheritance.
Ooh, inheritance. Always a fun topic at family gatherings.
Right. This book dives into that whole thing about weakening the strong and strengthening the weak.
It's true. Sometimes by helping too much, you're actually hurting them in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's this example of Mr. Andrews, who wants his son to handle the family money, but not his daughters.
Oh, recipe for disaster right there.
Right. So estate planning is crucial. Picking the right executor, being fair, making sure everyone feels heard.
It's about leaving a legacy of responsibility, not just a pile of money that might cause more problems than it solves. On that note about inheritance, one of the things that always sticks with me from this book is that advice about not telling your kids you're wealthy.
It's funny, right? You'd think it would motivate them.
Exactly, like aim higher, kids. But they say it can actually backfire.
It can, because it can create this sense of entitlement. Like they don't have to work as hard because they've got this safety net.
They haven't had to hustle the same way.
Exactly. And then they're less likely to take risks, to really chase their own dreams, because they're not as hungry for that independence. It's like that saying, give a man a fish.
And you feed them for a day. Teach a man to fish.
And you feed them for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, teaching them to fish is about financial responsibility, earning their own way.
Building their own legacy,
Yeah.
not just inheriting it.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? This book, it's not even about business, really, but it kind of reveals all these business opportunities.
Yeah, totally. It's like a gold mine of ideas if you're paying attention.
Right. Like they talk about estate attorneys. Huge demand. And it's not just wills anymore. It's trusts, it's family dynamics, it's making sure that wealth lasts.
It's a whole specialty.
It is. And then there's the private school thing,
Oh, yeah. With more affluent families, there's more demand for that specialized education.
Totally. People willing to pay a premium for that. And of course, financial advisors. But not just any advisor.
They have to get it right.
They have to.
Yeah.
Understand that PAW mindset.
Hmm.
Long-term, disciplined, all about preserving wealth. It's a whole different ballgame.
It really makes you think about the whole ecosystem, right? All these different pieces that thrive on these habits of the wealthy.
It does.
Yeah.
And even though it focuses on individuals, you can see how those same principles apply to businesses too.
Frugality, long-term vision, really knowing your niche.
Exactly. It's a good reminder for all of us, no matter where we're at. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses.
It's about defining success on your own terms.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's about that financial freedom, making choices that align with what you value.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive here into the Millionaire Next Door, any final thoughts for our listeners, especially those interested in mention listeners' reason for requesting the deep dive?
For me, it always comes back to that idea. Building wealth, it's not about luck. It's about making smart choices consistently.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Know your net worth, live below your means, invest wisely. Simple things, but powerful.
Powerful stuff. It's been great chatting about this with you. This book really challenges those assumptions we have about wealth and success.
It does. It shows that the real millionaires next door, they might not be who we expect.
And that true wealth, it's about more than just money. It's about freedom, security, living life on your own terms.
Absolutely.
To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you a lot to think about on your own journey. And remember, you might be the next millionaire next door.
That's right. And if you've got any thoughts, any questions, anything you want to add to the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. Keep those conversations going.